All right, so New York State has rolled out this pretty ambitious plan to change how its schools work. It's called the Culturally Responsive Sustaining Education Framework. That's a mouthful, I know. But what does it actually mean? Today, we're going to unpack the core ideas, what the goals are, and, what this thing really looks like in practice.
Okay, so to really get why this framework was even created, we kind of have to face a tough reality. For well over a century, the American education system has had these, well, built-in inequities. And what that means is, depending on a student's race, their language, or their background, the system has often created very different paths, some with more advantages, and yeah, some with a lot more obstacles.
In that right there, that's the core problem this whole framework is designed to target. The thinking behind it is that, small tweaks here and there just aren't going to cut it. To get real results for every single student, the system itself needs a fundamental transformation. And that's the big challenge that the Culturally Responsive Sustaining Framework, or CRS, let's just call it that for short, was built to take on.
Okay, so what is CRC education exactly? Let's break it down. At its very heart, it's an approach that basically flips a traditional idea on its head. So instead of seeing a student's cultural background or their language as some kind of hurdle to overcome, it actually sees that diversity as a powerful asset. It's a resource that can make learning better and richer for literally everyone in the room.
And look, this isn't just some dry policy document collecting dust on a shelf. Not at all. It's really driven by a clear and pretty ambitious vision for the kind of learners and citizens it hopes to create. So, what's the end goal here? What kind of student comes out of a CRCS environment?
This vision really broadens the whole definition of success in school. I mean, of course, academic achievement is still a huge goal, but look at what else is here. Students are encouraged to become socio-politically conscious. In plain English, that means they can look at the world with a critical eye, they can challenge inequity, and they can really understand how different systems work. The ultimate aim is to help develop students who see themselves as powerful agents of positive change.
Okay, so that's a pretty big vision, right? How in the world do you turn that into reality? Well, the framework gives us a blueprint, and it's built on 4 core principles that are meant to guide everything that schools and teachers do. And these 4 principles, they're designed to build on each other. First up, it all starts with creating a welcoming and affirming environment, a place where every single student feels like they truly belong. From there, you move on to high expectations and rigorous instruction, basically holding every student to a high standard. Then, that's supported by an inclusive curriculum and way of assessing students that reflects a ton of different histories and perspectives. And finally, the 4th principle is all about ongoing professional learning for the educators themselves, because, this is a journey, not a destination. All right, so this all sounds really good in theory, right? But what does it actually look like in a real school day to day? Let's dig into how the CRS framework translates into action for the people who are actually on the ground. So let's start with the teachers. They're on the front lines, and their role really goes through a pretty significant evolution with this framework. And this really gets to the heart of the shift. A huge focus is on building positive, strong relationships with students and their families. It also asks teachers to look inward and reflect on their own biases and how that might impact their expectations. And it means actively expanding the curriculum to bring in books, resources, and materials from voices that have traditionally been marginalized. It's all about making the classroom a place that truly reflects the students who are sitting in it every day. Okay, now let's flip the script and talk about the students. A central idea in this framework is that students aren't just empty vessels waiting to be filled with knowledge. No, they're seen as active, empowered partners in their own education. This is a really powerful vision for student agency. The framework encourages students to find their voice, to actually question the curriculum, to work with their teachers, to co-design lessons, and, to lean into those tough, sometimes uncomfortable conversations that are so necessary for real growth and understanding. Okay, let's zoom out for a second, because underneath all these strategies and all these guidelines, there is one really fundamental philosophical shift. We're talking about a complete change in how we think about the role of culture in the classroom. This comparison really gets to the core of it. For a long, long time, education has often worked from what you could call a deficit-based view. That's where a student's cultural background might be seen, even unintentionally, as a problem to be fixed or assimilated. But the CRS framework pushes for an asset-based view. It sees those exact same cultural differences as a source of strength, a deep well of knowledge that makes the entire classroom richer.
And when you boil it all down, what this really means is that culture is no longer treated like an add-on. It's not just something for a special assembly or a specific heritage month. Instead, it's recognized as a critical, inseparable part of how every single student learns, how they see the world, and how they make sense of information.
So at the end of the day, the framework provides the map, but the real journey, that happens in every single school. Its success isn't really about the policy document itself. It's about whether communities are willing to ask this fundamental question: how can we shift from seeing our differences as problems that need to be solved and start seeing them as our greatest assets, ones that can enrich everyone's education?